All right, so this is absolutely huge. I just did a live show where I mentioned I thought this settlement, whenever it came out, would be so watered down that it doesn't really address anything. That doesn't seem to be the case. Now, we'll have to see how it's implemented, what pushback or fighting there are from state schools, etc. But this is from On3 ESPN, also just released an article, but this one by Pete Nikos. Apologize if I'm butchering that name. Judge approves landmark House versus NCAA settlement. Now, there's two big things, and I'm not an expert on this. There's two big things I see in here that this addresses. One, there will be a $20.5 million revenue share between schools and athletes. So it says it's expected. So again, we still don't know the exact verbiage of how this reads. It says expected to receive or distribute 75% to football of this 20.5 million, 15% to basketball, 5% to women's basketball, and 5% to the remaining sports, which is interesting that women's basketball gets a flat 5% above some other sports like baseball, softball, etc. Either way, it does mention at the end of this article there could be some Title IX challenges to this. If you're not familiar with what Title IX is, just generally speaking, you cannot discriminate based on sex. Funding, it's been used as far as scholarships offered, but you can't discriminate based on sex, and colleges can't. Now, I imagine what they're going to say is, well, we're not saying this is necessarily set in stone. If a school wants to distribute 15% to women's sports, they can, or whatever. But we'll have to see. The second big thing, and this is huge. Let me scroll down here, is that they are going to create, two things: a college football commission and an NIL clearinghouse. I think it's going to be called NIL Go. And all NIL deals are going to have to flow through this NIL clearinghouse that's going to be run by Deloitte. I'm not super familiar with Deloitte. When I worked in Midtown at Peachtree, I forget the building with the two towers. I know Deloitte had an office in there. So all third-party NIL deals of $600 or more are going to have to be approved by this clearinghouse. And here's the huge thing. This article says that 70% of past deals would have been denied by this clearinghouse had it existed since NIL's conception. That's massive. 70% of deals would have been struck down. And I guess this college football commission is going to be tasked with imposing penalties, enforcing the rules, etc. And they're going to have to name a commissioner. It does say that 90% of past deals from public companies would have been approved, though. So the article says this is kind of a shot in the face of the state of Tennessee, because they pass state laws that say, we can go above and beyond whatever salary cap limit that you might try and impose. And this is something I've talked about on the channel. One way around this would be to create something that has some form of efficacy or ability to impose rules that's not the NCAA, which they've done, and say, hey, if you want to be a part of college football, you want to play college football with all the other schools, you're going to have to agree to these rules. If you don't want to, no one's forcing you. All right. We're kind of picking on Tennessee here. But if Tennessee doesn't want to be in here, basically what this article is saying is, bye, Felicia. Don't have to be a part of it. I guess you can go play whatever schools that aren't agreeing to be a part of this. Now, I do see some issues as far as still people cheating the system. The whole history of college football, especially from 90s up till now, before it was legal, quote unquote, to pay players. It was happening. And the NCAA asymmetrically enforced the rules. So they generally didn't hit the big boys with it. And then they would pick on like a Missouri who got hit with academic violations to kind of justify their existence. If this commission is composed of like people involved with college football, though, I do imagine they're going to self-police. So the LSUs of the world are not going to let Alabama get away with anything. Clemson's been on top of the ACC. The Clemsons of the world are not going to be okay with, teams in the Big Ten getting away with murder or non-NIL Go approved NIL deals. So I do think this could work. Part of being a part of this new college football model is going to be that you agree that you will not sue this commissioning body, which is critical. Absolutely critical. The whole problem with college football in the past 5 years has been anytime the NCAA tries to levy any sort of penalty, they get sued into Timbuktu. And the NCAA just doesn't have the funds. I don't know if anyone has the funds to fight 133 or 135 schools that are suing them for various reasons. So I do think it's critical that you agree that you're not going to sue this governing body. So this is interesting. Again, we'll have to see how it's implemented. Another thing it talks about is roster limits. So it also says expected or suggested, this article used the term proposed. Proposed rosters include football of 105, which we already saw that being kicked around, women's basketball of 15, baseball 34, men and women's soccer 28, softball 25, volleyball 18. Now, part of what delayed this settlement agreement was not having a hard cutoff on when this roster limit would be imposed. In other words, you have to grandfather in these rules, which makes sense. You commit to a school, let's say last year, and you're kind of you're at the bottom of the depth chart. So they say, hey, we're just going to cut you because of this settlement agreement. I mean, that's not really fair to that kid. So I don't see in here where it lays out a timetable. A lot of the wording is suggested, proposed, etc. So again, we'll have to wait and see the particulars. But I want to read this too, because this is important. The agreement spell out that institutions must waive right to sue the College Sports Commission. That's what they're calling it. The new enforcement entity to be created following this settlement. So leave a comment below. Do you think there will be schools that fight this? It names Tennessee. Again, we're kind of picking on Tennessee. Do you think there'll be schools that come out here and try and fight this? And also, kind of in the back of my mind is, will a school have to be made an example of? In other words, kicked out of quote unquote college football to show everyone that they're serious and this is the direction and the future that college football is adopting. So again, this just came out. We'll have to wait and see. It's going to be very interesting. I'm excited that there does seem to be a quote unquote serviceable plan moving forward that I think could work and stabilize the Wild West that college football has been. Again, leave a comment below to what you think. Hope you guys have a great one. Talk to you guys soon.